Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. This week, the Appalachian Prison Book Project has been sending books to incarcerated people for nearly 20 years. Its most popular book is the dictionary.
Spell check can help us spell a word, but people on the inside can't really do that. People on the inside often talk about dictionaries as the prison internet.
The Seeing Hand Association brings together people who are visually impaired to learn the craft of chair caning.
Some days I'd come here and just cry. And then you meet these people and you hear all their stories and you see what they've had to overcome and that they smile and they laugh every day. It got me out of my funk. It brought my confidence back.
And crossing a river by ferry can be a special experience and hard to come by. On the Ohio River, a retiring ferry captain passes the torch to his deckhand.
When he first started, he never even used to drive boats at all. So this to him would be like a newly licensed individual learning how to drive a tractor trailer first.
You'll hear these stories and more this week inside Appalachia. Welcome inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams. Each year, Berea College and the Appalachian Studies Association present the Weatherford Awards. They honor books about the Appalachian South. The winner of the 2024 award for nonfiction is titled, "This Book is Free and Yours to Keep." It consists largely of letters from incarcerated people across the region who corresponded with the Appalachian Prison Book Project. Ellen Skirvin is one of the book's editors. Ellen Skirvin, thank you so much for coming on Inside Appalachia.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'd like to hear more about the Appalachian Prison Book Project. What do y'all do? How many folks do you work with? Where are folks located?
Sure. So APBP is a volunteer-driven nonprofit organization based in Morgantown, West Virginia, and we send free books and provide educational opportunities to people incarcerated in prisons and jails across Appalachia, serving 6 states, so Virginia, West Virginia, Tennessee, Kentucky, Ohio, and Maryland. And we respond to about 200 letters a week. So that gives you an idea of how many people we work with and serve. And since APBP was founded in 2004, we've mailed over 70,000 books to people in prison. And we also create opportunities for volunteers and members in the Appalachian community to learn more about the legal justice and prison systems in the US. In short, our mission is to challenge mass incarceration through books, education, and community engagement.
Why is it so important for people in prison to have access to books, and particularly beyond just the libraries that are available in those prisons?
Yeah, so education, literature, and access to books, these are human rights, which means everyone should have access to them. And our goal is to provide these rights to people behind bars who actually have historically not had access to them or have very little access to them. And while some prisons and jails might have libraries, sometimes they can be very sparse. And we also know that books change people's perspectives, hearts, and lives. And many of the volunteers who first become involved with APBP come to it because they also have a love of reading. So many English professors from West Virginia University, as well as students and just community members who come to APBP because of a love of reading and wanting to share that and connect with people over that love of reading. And we've seen the power of reading firsthand. We've seen time and time again that books and education are lifelines to people in prison and jail. And people ask for books to help them pass the time, to help them learn something new, to help them understand the legal system and their own court case, to help them prepare for life outside of prison, and to even try to build a life inside.
How did the project get started? What led to its launch, and how did you all grow to where you're at now?
Yeah, so the idea for APBP began in 2004. Katie Ryan, who is an English professor at West Virginia University, taught a prison studies graduate course. And through the readings, students were really struck by the continuous mention of books as a source of power and freedom for people inside. And Katie had mentioned the lack of organizations that sent free books to people incarcerated in the Appalachian region to the students. And this led the class to want to really do something about it. And none of them had volunteered at a prison book project before or even knew how to start an organization like that. But they tapped into the surrounding community for help, involving Morgantown locals and university members, collecting paperbacks and fundraising. And even after that prison studies class ended and some of the students had to leave and they graduated, the effort still continued and more people became involved. And we were given a donated workspace inside the All Center, which is a 100-year-old building that houses the local library's genealogy records in Morgantown. And after 2 years of preparation, we finally sent our first book to a person in prison. And we continue to grow and learn from other prison book projects. And we also facilitate book clubs inside prisons and have grown to be able to also offer educational scholarships to people recently released. We also support college classes in prison, including assisting an associate's degree program through West Virginia University's Higher Education Prison Initiative.
And you all also have published your own book titled "This Book is Free and Yours to Keep: Notes from the Appalachian Prison Book Project." How did this book come about? How did you all go from providing books to making a book yourself?
Other prison book projects have done a wonderful job of documenting this type of work. So, like Seattle Prison Book Project also came out with a book. Another book was Books Through Bars, Stories from the Prison Book Movement, which includes stories from people in all different book projects across the country. And we also felt it was important to document the history of this work, and particularly in Appalachia. And as I've mentioned, we've sent tens of thousands of books, which means we had tens of thousands of letters. So many of the letters really moved us, whether someone was writing about a book that they really connected with, that we connected with, a book series that they love, or a book that helped them with a court case. But people didn't only just talk about books or request a book. They often, in their letters, told stories about their lives and their loved ones and their dreams, or a funny story from their childhood, or devastating stories, or stories about the lack of access to books inside. And we felt like this was a really unique opportunity to not only document the work of APBP, but also to have a space to show this range of writing and experience captured in these letters. So when we finally set out to start this book, which was back in 2018, we had many volunteers get involved in selecting potential letters and artwork for the book, going through those many, many letters that I talked about. Then we set out to get permission from some of the people who wrote to us and also gave us artwork too, which many times there's artwork included on the envelopes that are sent to us. So we told them about our goal for creating this book and our hope to publish their work, and hope to have permission from them. And ultimately, we received permission from 80 incarcerated people to incorporate their writing in the book, and over a dozen permissions to include artwork that they had sent to us. So it took a lot of help from the community to kind of get all of these letters together, as well as gain that permission and put this book together. So it's really been a community project.
One part of this book includes sample of letters from people requesting specific books, and it's a pretty broad range of stuff. What tends to stand out to you in terms of book requests? What do you all have that tends to be the most requested? What are some of the more surprising requests you received over the years?
So by far the most requested book is a dictionary, and about 1 in 6 books we send is a reference book like a dictionary or encyclopedia or almanac. And that's mainly because people in prison don't have access or have very little access to the internet. And we take that for granted on the outside. If we are writing something, then spell check can help us spell a word. Or if in important documents or just in communication with a friend, we don't know what a word means, we can easily look that up. But people on the inside can't really do that. And people on the inside often talk about dictionaries as the prison internet, and how-to books about starting a business, working with cars, legal primers, dictionaries in different languages. All those are important in prisons. And so we get so many requests for dictionaries that once one is donated, it really just flies off the shelf and goes right into the mail. Other than that, we get a lot of requests for contemporary fiction, popular mysteries, sci-fi novels. All these books are really popular on the inside. I know I had seen requests for training dogs, which I was surprised by at first, but then after receiving more letters, realized that there were programs for training dogs inside the prison, and the people inside wanted to do a better job at that training, and that's why they were asking for those books.
So where does the Appalachian Prison Book Project go from here? What constitutes success for the Appalachian Prison Book Project?
Yeah, so every time we get a book into the hands of someone who wants to read it is a good day, in my opinion. And when we are finally allowed to send books to a prison or jail that maybe wouldn't let us before, that's always a good thing too. And when people write back to us saying they enjoyed the book we sent them or that they learned something new, that's always a success. And we want to continue to grow, of course, and continue to support college education inside and also for those recently released. So more than books, but educational support too.
Alan Skirvin, thank you so much for coming on Inside Appalachia to speak with us.
Thank you so much, Mason. I appreciate it.
Alan Skirvin is one of the editors of This Book is Free and Yours to Keep. It's available from West Virginia University Press. Nearly 10 million U.S. citizens are part of a mixed status family. That means they have at least one parent, sibling, or spouse that's undocumented. Some of those families have just one way to prevent being separated by deportation. For the undocumented person to go to their home country, get a visa from the U.S. Embassy there, and come back legally. WPLN's Char Daston met a woman in Tennessee whose mother recently tried this. It's not an easy process.
Since Lucy was a kid, her family has been taking her to Las Americas restaurant on Nolensville Pike.
I've been ordering the same thing ever since then. I was shown the pupusas one time, never changed.
Pupusas, corn flour flatbreads filled with meat and cheese. They're a staple food in Central America, including Guatemala, where Lucy's parents are from. Her dad's an asylum seeker who got citizenship, but her mom is undocumented. We're only using her first name to protect her family's identity. The day I met Lucy for lunch at Las Americas was a stressful time for her. Her parents were in Guatemala, trying to get her mom a visa from the U.S. Embassy. Before the trip, Lucy remembers telling her mom,
You can be fearful all you want. That is totally, totally okay. And I'm like, you can be very, very excited as well. And I'm like, you can be anxious. You are totally allowed to have all these feelings.
Lucy's mom had been trying to get legal immigration status for years. Not just because of the threat of deportation, but because being undocumented affected her ability to earn money for the family.
She can't have a normal job. She can't have benefits. She has had multiple times where being paid under the table, people will, basically steal her wages because of that.
But the process was really complicated. Basically, spouses of U.S. citizens can get legal status, but if they've lived here without documentation for more than 6 months, they first need a waiver in which the government agrees not to punish them for the time they spent here illegally. Then they need to get a visa at the U.S. Embassy in their home country. Lucy thinks her mom may have finally gotten a waiver because her brother and sister were in the Marines.
And after my brother joined, because he went first, he was able to help expedite her process. And within the last year, certain processes she's never been able to reach before started happening for her.
That's not something that actually happens.
That's Emily Stotts, immigration lawyer and legal director at the nonprofit Tennessee Justice for Our Neighbors. She says there's usually no simple explanation for why you might get a favorable outcome in the immigration system or why others might not.
I frequently tell clients, just because you're X, Y, or Z does not mean that the government's going to speed up your process for you.
Stotts says if they qualify, she'll help clients pursue the path Lucy's mother took. But in her more than a decade as an immigration lawyer, she's only had a handful even try. That's not just because of the slow bureaucracy. Some are not able to afford the trip or the legal fees. The situation in their home country might be unsafe. And if there's something wrong with their paperwork once they're out of the country, they can be barred from re-entering the U.S. for up to 10 years.
Obviously, if you have children here, if you have a life here, if you have a family here, that's kind of the end of the conversation. A lot of people aren't willing to risk that.
For Lucy's family, the risk paid off. A couple weeks after our lunch at Las Americas, Lucy texted me some happy news. Her mom was back in the U.S. legally. Her family was reunited.
Any pestering question that I had in the back of my mind, it all just kind of disappeared. Because basically, as soon as I was able to hold my mom, it felt like I've never been given that, strong hug in so long, and I did not want to let go.
Meanwhile, the Trump administration's immigration enforcement has gotten harsher and harder to predict. Here's what Stotts says to her clients who want to travel internationally.
Even though a lot of them have either residency or some other permission that says they're allowed to leave and come back, I'm honestly cautioning them against it.
That means even fewer mixed status families will attempt what Lucy's mom did, leaving them vulnerable to separation.
Jardastin's story came to us through the Appalachia Mid-South newsroom, a collaboration between NPR and public radio stations in West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky. Coming up, a community of skilled workers show that not everything that looks broken has to be thrown out. You're inside Appalachia. I'm Mason Adams.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University, focusing on students' futures. Classes available at concord.edu/apply.
In April, reporter Clara Hazlett placed first at the Virginia's Associated Press Broadcasters Awards for Best Mountain State Heritage, with a story about a community of people in Wheeling, West Virginia, who repair old cane chairs. You know the type. Your parents or grandparents might have had a set. You don't see cane chairs as much as you used to. Cane breaks down, and few people know how to fix the chairs. So they get thrown away. But they don't have to be. Here's the story.
Super duper tight, under, over, super duper tight.
Bianca Miller is standing eye level with a wooden chair that's been placed on top of a table. Now, usually chairs go under the table, and usually chairs are for sitting. But if you sat on this chair, you'd fall right through. The seat is gone.
Under, over, under, over.
Bianca's weaving a new seat onto the chair's empty wooden frame. She's using a material called rush, which looks almost like a long, thick shoestring. It's brittle and needs a good long soak before you can weave with it.
Say a little prayer, because I like my fingers.
As she weaves, Bianca pulls at the rush to tighten it.
Super duper tight. Make sure your fingers turn the darkest red they can possibly turn. And if you lose the first few layers of skin, it's okay. It's all for the chair. There you go.
Bianca canes by memory, touch, and whatever level of vision she has that day.
With my disease, I never know if I'm going to wake up with vision or not.
She was diagnosed with uveitis in 2020. It's an inflammatory eye disease.
And in the process of getting treatment, I ended up going totally blind for 10 months.
Bianca eventually regained some vision, but it's unpredictable.
Today I have floaters and flashes, and it's a little bit cloudy, almost as if you're looking through a lava lamp, because you just never know what to expect.
Although Bianca's sight isn't guaranteed day to day, it's not really necessary to do this job, and to do it well. In fact, everyone in this workshop has limited visual ability.
There you go.
It's a nonprofit called Seeing Hand. They provide employment and specialized services for folks that are blind or visually impaired. Employees are trained in a variety of skills, like refurbishing fire extinguishers, making and restoring mops, caning chairs.
You know, the fire extinguishers, the chairs, the mops, the brooms. It all makes sure we have a job. It's job security. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 6 of us that do the chairs.
Bianca came to Seeing Hand about 2 years ago.
I kind of forgot about this place until my mother had reminded me that my grandfather was here. He had went blind all of a sudden in his early 30s, which is when I went blind.
It's been years now since Bianca's grandfather worked here, but Seeing Hand is still around, marking nearly a century of providing services and support in the community. Mike Cunningham started at Seeing Hand last year.
So I work 3 days a week. It's first time I've been working since 2012. Before this job, my activities outside of the house were 45 minutes at the grocery store. Basically was stuck in the house for, 10 years.
Mike's totally blind in his left eye. The vision in his right eye is slightly better, but not great.
I have 0 straight lines. Every straight line is curved. So it's more of a distortion than it is, blindness. So it's a definite impairment.
Mike is weaving with cane, a material that's thinner and more delicate than rush.
All right, let's see.
Following an intricate pattern, he carefully threads a strip of cane. Under, over, over.
Mike is newer, but he doubts himself a little more than he should, because he does a beautiful job, and I shouldn't say that, because every time I say good job or wow, it looks really good, something always happens. So, Mike, terrible, yeah, burn it.
Mike's nearly done with this chair. He says it's been his hardest yet.
A lot of the time you talk to the chair. If it's not going very easy, you don't say very nice things.
Sometimes caning can be frustrating. I stick my tongue out sometimes because there's spots where it's hard to do.
That's Janine Schmidt. Her work table is right across from Mike's.
There you go. Here's a cloth.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome.
Janine is 81. She learned how to cane over 40 years ago, before experiencing any vision loss. These days, she largely relies on muscle memory.
You almost can feel if it's right. It's like second nature. Your fingers kind of are on automatic. This is a chair that's probably 100 years old.
Around these parts, 100 years old is pretty average. Bianca shows me a row of chairs that are patiently waiting their turn to undergo chair surgery. There's an old rocker covered in dust.
Yeah, that one's going to be really hard to do.
There's one with a fist-sized hole right through the cane.
I love the dirty and the ugly, and I wouldn't say ugly, unique. It's absolutely beautiful. I mean, we get to work on them. You know how old these chairs are?
Most chairs here are brought in by customers from around the Ohio Valley, but the chairs themselves come from all over.
Some of them are stamped, Italy or Germany, and some of them are stamped like Indiana or New York, and you wonder, okay, how did this even come about? You know what I mean? I don't know. My brain can go on forever, and it's just a chair, for gosh sakes. I mean,
Before working here at Seeing Hand, Bianca was a bus driver.
the bus's name was Twinkles. I love that job. I miss that job.
When she started to regain some vision, her goal was to get her commercial driver's license back.
I had to come to a realization that'll never happen. Sorry. I loved that job. But seeing hand has brought that back. When I first started working here, I was depressed. I gained a lot of weight. I was on a lot of meds. I was up and down, back and forth. Some days I'd come here and just cry, like, should have even came. And then you meet these people and you hear all their stories and you see what they've had to overcome and that they smile and they laugh every day. It got me out of my funk. It brought my confidence back.
Most people have really no idea what certain things can do to you when you're vision impaired. And it's nice to have people, if you explain to them, they know what you mean, and they're like brothers and sisters.
So this place is so much more than just, a paycheck.
This is my second home. Let's put it like that.
Got it.
Janine is nearly finished with her chair. So is Mike. When they're done, the chairs will be sent downstairs to join the ranks of the other finished chairs, all freshly stained and tightly caned. And in a few weeks, Bianca's chair will be done too, repaired and ready for another 100 years. For Inside Appalachia, I'm Clara Hazlett.
That story is part of our Folkways reporting project, which covers arts and culture in our region. You can find more Folkways stories at our website, wvpublic.org. The town of Sistersville, West Virginia, is home to the last ferry crossing in the Mountain State. The Sistersville Ferry has been serving this tiny community for more than 200 years. And now there's a new pilot at the helm. Late last year, before the ferry stopped running for the winter, reporter Zach Harold stopped by to witness the last ride of Captain Bo House.
Let's say you find yourself in Sistersville, West Virginia, and you really have a hankering for a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich from the Riverview restaurant just across the Ohio River in the tiny, unincorporated town of Fly, Ohio. You have a couple options. You could drive up to New Martinsville, West Virginia, cross the bridge, and head back down. That's about a 30-minute trip. Or you could drive down to St. Mary's, West Virginia, cross there. That's about a 45-minute trip. Or you could just take the Sistersville Ferry, which will require only 10 minutes of your time and a $5 bill.
There's not a schedule. It's what I call on demand.
That's Captain Bo House, who pilots the ferry.
If we're, like right now, we're on the West Virginia side, a car pulled up, so we're getting ready to go to Fly, Ohio. And we're going to sit there until a car shows up there, or if a car shows up on the West Virginia side, but then we'll come back and get them.
Bo's been at the helm of this ferry for the last 12 years, and he looks the part of a wizened riverman. Long gray beard, long gray ponytail, arms sleeved in tattoos. But he's just the latest in a long line of pilots, because the Sistersville Ferry has served this community for over 200 years, mostly without interruption. The boat only makes 2 stops, Sistersville and Fly, Ohio. It's the only ferry in West Virginia and one of only 6 ferry crossings left on the entire Ohio River. Years ago, back when the area's economy was in a better shape, this ferry used to run every day. Now the ferry is a local tradition, a novelty, a tourist attraction, and its schedule reflects that.
It's a summertime outfit. We're open from the beginning of May to the end of September.
I showed up to witness the final day of the 2024 season, which also happened to be Bo's final day as captain. He came to the job back in 2012 after retiring from the Coast Guard. His daughter worked for the local newspaper and learned the ferry board was looking to hire a new pilot.
So I put in a resume and I was working the next day.
Though Bo had taken the helm of lots of different ships during his time with the Coast Guard, there was a learning curve once he got on the water here.
Yeah, because I've never driven a tugboat. That was a little different, just because of the setup in the pilot house.
The driver's seat of this boat is probably unlike anything you've seen before. The pilot controls the vessel by yanking on a series of horizontal chrome levers that control the throttling of the boat's giant diesel engine.
So it took a little practice. It took me about a month that I could do it on my own.
After 12 seasons, Bo knows all the intricacies of this crossing, from how a wind from the north will push the boat a certain way, to the location of the sandbars hidden beneath the water's surface, to how the current will affect his angle of approach to the muddy landing on the Ohio side of the river. Now that he's leaving, Bo's doing his best to impart that knowledge to his replacement, Tom Meek. Tom is a retired police officer who lives on the Ohio side and started as Bo's deckhand last year.
Bo gave 2 years' notice, and no other qualified pilots had ever applied. No one showed any interest, so about 2/3 of the way through the season last year, they asked me if I'd be interested. I said, sure.
When he first started, he never even used to drive boats at all. So this to him would be like a newly licensed individual learning how to drive a tractor trailer first. He's doing very well. In fact, if he had his license right now, I'd tell him, just give him the keys, as they say. Go ahead and take it. You're good to go.
Under Bo's tutelage, Tom has learned the ins and outs, or rather the backs and forths of running this ferry. He's also learned quite a bit about its clientele.
Today, because it's the last day of the season, there's a lot of people who've never been on this ferry because they're pulling up asking how much. Any regular riders, or they know the price. I'm seeing vehicles I haven't seen. A lot of times I can pretty much, I know, oh, that's a regular.
Turning the driving over to Tom has allowed Bo to spend more time with those regulars. Folks he's known for over a decade, but on busy days could only wave to from the window of the pilot house. A red Ram pickup pulls onto the ferry at the Sistersville dock.
That's one.
The Eastham family are regulars, and today they're headed to some property they own on the Ohio side. Once the truck is in park, daughter Kaylin and son Avery jump right out to talk to Bo. Their mom, Nicole, said at this point, he's basically part of the family.
He's known my daughter since she was just a baby, and he knew Avery before he was born. I mean, I rode when I was pregnant with Avery, so he's literally seen him grow up.
And you see now he'll be 11. And his sister was in a little booster chair in the back seat. She handed Dollar out, her little arm out the car window and say, here you go.
And I just enjoy watching families grow, talking, watching the kids grow up. I like the kids like coming up in the pilot house and steering, pretend they steer the boat.
Bo's personality has contributed a lot to the popularity of people wanting to ride the ferry.
That's ferry board member Helen Bucella-Costa. She came down to ride the ferry one last time before it closed for the year, just over to fly and back. And she wanted to wish Bo bon voyage.
He's just got a great heart and a wonderful smile, and comes down and gives bones to all the dogs and candy to the kids, and he makes you feel happy to be on the boat.
That gives me a good feeling that I guess I did an okay job.
The sky is overcast and drizzly, and business is slow as Bo's final day comes to a close. But the ferry has one final run to make. They have to go back over to Ohio and turn the sign around so drivers will know they're closed for the season. Tom climbs down from the pilot house to give his mentor one final turn at the wheel.
When I retired from the Coast Guard, my wife asked me if I was going to be okay because I won't be on the water. And it turned out that I'm on the water, and I enjoy it. I don't know that I'll miss it, but I definitely enjoyed it while I'm doing it.
For Inside Appalachia, I'm Zach Harold in Sistersville, West Virginia, and Fly, Ohio, and Sistersville, West Virginia, and Fly, Ohio.
That story by Zach Harold was first runner-up in the Best Mountain State Heritage category at the Virginia's Associated Press Broadcasters Awards. Congratulations to Zach, Clara, and all the award winners. One local researcher has documented more than 11,000 graves in Virginia's Allegheny Highlands, uncovering tales of intrigue, tragedy, and joy. WMRA's Randy B. Hagee reports.
On a steep hillside tumbling down to Shaw's Fork in Highland County, gravestones rise up like rocky sentinels above a ribbon of farmland. Some of the graves in the Hodge-McCrae Cemetery have inscribed headstones. One sprouts a Confederate Army marker. Others just have bare rocks bookmarking someone's final resting place.
My father's home place that we used to own is up here, up toward the end of the fork.
Kent Bakken's family is from here, around the little community of Headwaters. His mother's first husband was a Hodge.
They had 3 children. One lived. The other two died in infancy. And they are buried here. And he got a job in Pocahontas County cutting timber, which was where a lot of men from Highland went to get work. And a tree fell on him.
He reads from Charles Hodge's 1916 obituary in the Highland Recorder.
And at the end it says, "Thus the lumber camps augment their long list of Highland victims, dead, crippled, widowed, and orphaned."
When he's not at his day job at Green Valley Auctions, Botkin is often out documenting burial sites and scouring old newspapers and vital records for evidence of the people interred there. Over the past dozen years, he's recorded details from over 11,000 graves on the website findagrave.com. That's where I first came across his work, when I was researching the Cabell family of Stanton's historic Cabell log house.
My father and some of the older people of Highland County had told me little stories about various people, and I was looking for a way to preserve that and document it. When I was doing mine, and it's like, well, here is this person here, and there's no family left to document, record what they did.
His labor of love grew from there. So far, he's visited 198 burial sites in Highland County, and more in Augusta and Bath, and West Virginia's Pendleton and Pocahontas counties. The oldest date back to the 1790s. The most remote,
You can only get there by foot. You got to cross a river, climb a couple steep hills.
in the middle of a cow field in Headwaters, is a community cemetery where just over 400 people are buried, the descendants of Scotch, Irish, and German immigrants who lived in the mountains. One of them is James Carwell, the one-time owner of the Hotel Monterey. Misfortune befell James and his wife Amanda, starting with a fire that temporarily closed the hotel.
And then in January of 1920, she dies of food poisoning. And then he disappears in March 1921 with a wad of cash and a pistol. And then late of that year, they find his body outside of Monterey with a bullet hole in the skull, in the back. The cash is gone. They couldn't find the pistol. It's still an unsolved mystery. It's kind of hard to shoot yourself in the back of the head and get rid of the gun at the same time.
Many of Botkin's relatives are here too, including his great-aunt Lou McCrae.
Lou was very musical. She and my grandmother, both of them played the organ for the Presbyterian Church down here. My grandmother was a very conservative kind of person. Lou was a very free-spirit person. They both played the organ, and they both sit up there. And the church congregation would have to wait while the two women debated on who played what.
Just down Route 250 towards McDowell, on a secluded little knoll dotted with sun-warmed pines, is another burial site. Only one of the plots has an engraved headstone.
And if you notice, there's a whole bunch of graves through here.
Like these little pockets in the hillside.
Yes, there's one there. I think there's between 15 and 20 graves here for sure.
The one man we know for sure is buried there is George William Allen Minor, a Black World War I veteran. Based on genealogy records, he was born in Highland County to George and Betty Jackson Rogers Minor in 1896. Minor served overseas in the 867th Company of the Transportation Corps. A passenger list notes that he sailed back to the U.S. from Bordeaux, France in 1919. He returned to Highland County to farm before moving to the Stanton area where he worked at a military school. He died 3 days after Christmas, 1934, of gastrointestinal toxemia from eating canned meat. He was 38 years old. Minor's obituary says he was survived by his wife, Lelia, his mother, 3 brothers, 2 stepdaughters, and 3 grandchildren. He was buried in the Jackson Cemetery near McDowell, indicating that the others buried there are likely his mother's kin. One of his stepdaughters, Margaret, moved to Baltimore. I've tried to contact some of her descendants but have not heard back.
There is an American flag by the soldier's grave, so somebody's been up here in the last few years to honor him in that way. The markers for the other graves are sinking into the ground, and It's a shame that there's no way to make it more permanent. At least on the internet, there is some record of it, and hopefully later on down the line, somebody will come along and find that information and find it useful.
Until then, the interred keep their silent vigil under the pines, another family laid to rest in the Virginia mountains they called home, remembered by researchers and what descendants time has scattered to the wind. I'm Randy B. Hagee.
When we talk about carbon emissions, what comes to mind? Maybe fossil fuels and gas-burning cars? But a major contributor of greenhouse gas emissions is concrete. And demand for concrete for buildings and highways is growing. That's a problem for a warming planet. The Allegheny Front's Carol Holsopple spoke with reporter Ames Alexander about the issue and has this.
Cement is the glue that keeps concrete together, but making it generates a massive amount of carbon emissions. The industry is trying to decarbonize by using greener materials, and that's happening in Europe. For the news outlet Floodlight, Ames Alexander wrote about how these efforts in the U.S. are being challenged by the Trump administration. First, I wanted to know how the Biden administration addressed the issue.
They did a number of things. The EPA under the Biden administration awarded 21 grants aimed at reducing greenhouse gas emissions from concrete, cement, and other construction materials. And the Department of Energy had awarded $1.5 billion in grants to projects designed to curb emissions by the cement industry. The IRA, Biden's massive climate law, also provided $2.2 billion for the purchase of low-carbon construction materials for planned federal buildings.
And what has this Trump administration done to sort of slow down this decarbonization of the industry?
Well, what we know for sure is that the 21 EPA grants that were designed to reduce greenhouse gas emissions from construction materials were canceled. They were canceled in February. I'm hearing that the Department of Energy grant money might also be in jeopardy. And there's concern among environmentalists that a big chunk of that $2.2 billion for the purchase of low-carbon construction materials I was telling you about, that a lot of that might not get spent on green materials, but that's not yet clear.
What has the EPA said about why these grants have been canceled?
Very little so far. I sent them a list of questions and they didn't really address them. They simply sent me a 2-sentence response that said that the agency determined that the grant applications no longer support administration priorities.
Is there any political momentum for making lower carbon concrete?
Yes, there's a bipartisan effort in Congress that could advance efforts to decarbonize the cement industry. Legislation that passed in the House last month would establish a Department of Energy program to support production of low-emission cement, concrete, and asphalt. And there's a second House bill that would provide grants to states to encourage the purchase of green cement, concrete, and asphalt. The Senate has introduced similar legislation that includes features from both House bills. I talked with Representative Valerie Foushee. She's a North Carolina Democrat who co-sponsored both House bills. And she told me she understands there's support for this legislation in the Senate, too.
What do people inside the industry say about all this?
Well, I've talked with officials from 2 of the big trade associations for the cement and concrete industries, and they say the industry is working really hard to decarbonize. They've got goals to completely decarbonize the industry by 2050. But without government support, they say, the efforts to do that will be slowed. I think they're as curious as I am about what the next 4 years will bring.
Ames Alexander is an investigative reporter at Floodlight, a news outlet looking into the corporations and political interests stalling climate action. He spoke with the Allegheny Front's Carol Holsopple. People who live in cities can get used to having their trash picked up at the curb. But folks who live in more rural communities have to haul it to dumpster sites. Those sites are destinations, not just for folks hauling trash, but also for bears seeking an easy meal. Now, some places have made moves to keep bears out of the trash, which also helps keep them alive. WVPB's Eric Douglas has more.
It's not every day I schedule an interview beside a trash can, but there's a reason for it. The dumpsters at Beckley West Apartments are special. They're designed to help keep bears out and keep bears and humans safe at the same time. Colin Carpenter, a black bear project leader with the West Virginia Division of Natural Resources, walked me through it.
This is an incredibly bear-resistant dumpster, and the thing that makes it bear-resistant is the fact that it's got metal lids on top, so the bear can't chew through it or pry it open, and it's got metal doors on the side that latch, and that is the key.
The area on top of the hill in the apartment complex used to have a bear problem.
It was rough. We had a lot of bears running around up here. They were tearing everything up, and at one point we had a mama bear with 3 cubs getting in the trash cans. And
that was Jerry Kinsinger. He's lived at the apartment complex for 15 years.
One tried to get in this apartment up here, the mama bear. She smelled food or something, and she started going out the door. But it's got a lot better now. It's just the dumpsters. As long as you keep the doors closed and everything like that, it's good.
Carpenter explained how the dumpsters work and some of the user errors that limit their usefulness.
On here is this particular dumpster is not latched currently. Now, the good news is the door is closed because, as Jerry mentioned, one of the biggest issues that we have with bears getting into dumpsters is when people, you can have a bear-resistant dumpster in place, but if the folks don't close the doors, then you have problems. The other thing this has got is a locking lid. This device here, this bar, actually goes up over the top, and that's what keeps the bears from being able to open the lid. So these are perfect. This is what we could really use in a lot of places in West Virginia.
Bears are around all the time, but their human interactions hit twice a year.
Our bear complaints peak typically when natural foods are scarce. So in West Virginia, our worst months for human-bear conflicts are May and June. We've a lot of stuff going on in the bear world at that time. So you've got bears that are coming out of the den, all of the bears, males, females, cubs, adults, and they're coming off of a time of scarcity, right? They've fasted all winter, lived off their body fat. Now they're coming out at a time of year when natural food is not real abundant. So they're subsisting on green vegetation for those first couple months. Green vegetation insects.
And this is where the human interaction problem comes in.
So if they can come and spend a lot less time at a very high calorie food source, they're going to take advantage of it. So the other thing we have social stuff going on with bears. So we've got sows that have yearling cubs, ones that are 17, 18 months old, that will be going off on their own for the first time. We also have the bear breeding season going on. So in June and July is when bears are breeding. So all of this activity is coinciding with a time of food scarcity. We don't have the summer berry crops yet, and these bears are readily going to take advantage of easily obtained food sources.
And that's where DNR staff have to get involved. In the past, they would relocate bears to more appropriate habitats. But Carpenter says years of evidence has shown many bears don't fare well when that happens.
The scientific literature has learned that older bears, adult bears, especially males, do not fare as well when you move them. They either become an issue somewhere else, they die at higher rates because you're putting them in different habitat, and these transplants don't take. So typically we have higher success with moving females or young animals. So it's been almost 15 years ago we changed our policy to where we are not moving these older animals. So if we have a food condition habituated bear, it ends up getting dispatched. And it's a sad thing for the bear because these issues can be prevented, as we just saw with the dumpster.
Carpenter said there have been situations where people have hand-fed ice cream or other treats to bears. But that action means the bear will have to be put down.
And that's the thing. We cannot retrain once these animals have developed that behavior. And again, it's these older animals that typically are the ones that end up in this category. And oftentimes these are these are great looking animals. They're big. They're trophy animals from a hunting perspective and just from anyone's perspective. So it's a sad thing to see, especially when we know that these things can be easily prevented.
As with everything, money is a problem, and a bear-resistant dumpster costs more of it.
The issue that we've had is finding providers in West Virginia that are willing to actually provide these dumpsters. We're trying to build a relationship with bear biologists and the trash companies to say, hey, look, we've got these issues that we're facing out here in the world. Can you work with us to come up with solutions?
Since the early 1970s, when there were fewer than 500 bears in West Virginia, in about 8 to 10 counties in the eastern mountains, conservation efforts and tracking have changed that to 12 to 14,000 bears in all 55 counties. Of course, that is a success story, but it brings with it its own set of challenges. For West Virginia Public Broadcasting, I'm Eric Douglas in Charleston.
Till next time, thanks for joining us as we journey throughout Appalachia. Our theme music is by Matt Jackford. Other music this week was provided by Jeff Ellis, The Sycamores, Tim Bing, John Ingram, Paul Loomis, and Blue Dot Sessions. Bill Lynch is our producer. Abby Neff is our associate producer. Our executive producer is Eric Douglas. Kelly Libby is our editor. Our audio mixer is Patrick Stevens. We had help this week from Folkways editor Chris Julin. You can find us on Instagram @InAppalachia. You can also send us an email to insideappalachia@wvpublic.org. Visit wvpublic.org/InsideAppalachia to subscribe to our newsletter and stream all our stories. Or look for Inside Appalachia on your favorite podcast app. Inside Appalachia is a production of West Virginia Public Broadcasting.
Support for Inside Appalachia is provided by Concord University, offering 31 bachelor-level degrees and 6 master-level degrees for students of any age. More information at concord.edu.